The great city of Valaris Prime shone like a jewel in the void of space. Its towers of silver glass rose high into the clouds, and the banners of the Dominion fluttered above every hall. For centuries, the Valari people had ruled dozens of worlds. Their empire feared and respected by many species. Their fleet spread across the stars, and their nobles believed no one was equal to them. At the heart of this empire stood Princess Serenia, the only daughter of Emperor Kalen. She was beautiful, tall and graceful, with eyes the color of deep oceans and hair that shimmered with silver light. To her people, she was a symbol of pride. To the council, she was a problem. Serenia was not like other nobles. She did not bow quietly to the wishes of the old council. She spoke against cruel decisions, against endless wars, and against the arrogance of her people. Her voice carried weight, but her boldness made enemies. One day, during a heated meeting in the Grand Council chamber, Serenia's fate was sealed. "You dare defy us again, princess?" hissed Lord Vanar, one of the elder counselors. "You shame your family by siding with lesser species." Serenia stood tall in the circle of glowing pillars. "The council is blind. You believe strength only means conquest. But power without wisdom will destroy us all. Even the humans you call primitive show more honor than this room." A ripple of gasps moved through the chamber. To compare the Valari with humans, a young species barely crawling among the stars, was seen as an insult. The Emperor himself, her father, closed his eyes. "Daughter, you have gone too far. You challenge tradition and dishonor your bloodline. The council demands punishment, and I cannot shield you any longer." Serenia clenched her fists but did not bow. "If speaking the truth is dishonor, then let it be so," the council whispered among themselves, their cold eyes fixed on her. Finally, Lord Vanar smiled in cruel satisfaction. "Then let her be bound to one of the humans she praises so highly. Let her live among them, chained to their weakness. Let her regret her foolish words." The decision was made in that moment. She would be forced into marriage with a human chosen by the council. The ceremony was unlike any royal union the galaxy had ever seen. It was not a day of celebration, but of humiliation. Serenia was dressed in ceremonial robes of silver, her expression cold and unreadable. Around her, alien nobles whispered behind jeweled masks, their voices filled with mockery. At the end of the hall stood the human, Captain Daniel Reeve. He was not a prince, not a noble, not even a governor of Earth. He was a soldier, a starship captain who had served with honor during border patrols. He stood tall, broad-shouldered, with dark hair and steady eyes. His uniform was simple, without the rich gems or glowing silks of alien royalty. Daniel himself had not chosen this fate. The council had summoned him, telling him that he was to marry the princess of the Dominion as a sign of peace. But he knew it was a game, a way to punish her, and perhaps humiliate humans too. As Serenia walked toward him, her steps slow and proud, Daniel could feel the weight of every eye in the chamber. The aliens were waiting for him to stumble, to look small, to prove their belief that humans were unworthy. But Daniel did not falter. He bowed respectfully to Serenia, his voice calm. "Princess." She did not answer. Her gaze passed over him like cold glass, as if he were invisible. The union was sealed with words spoken in the old Valari tongue. When it was done, the council applauded softly, their faces filled with hidden laughter. To them, this was justice. To Serenia, it was exile. After the ceremony, Serenia and Daniel were escorted to a private chamber. Guards stood outside the doors, ensuring no one left until the council allowed it. The princess moved to the farthest corner of the room, her back straight, her chin lifted. Daniel remained near the door, giving her space. For a long time, silence filled the room. Finally, Serenia spoke, her voice sharp as crystal. "Do not think this means anything. You are no husband to me. You are only the tool they chose to break me." Daniel met her eyes. There was no anger in his face, only calm honesty. "I know. I didn't ask for this either. But I won't treat you like a prisoner." Her lips tightened. You should know. Your place, human. In this empire, you are nothing. Daniel's jaw tensed, but his tone stayed even. Maybe. But where I come from, being nothing is better than being cruel. Her eyes widened slightly. No one spoke to her like that. Not her people, not the council, not even her father. For a moment, she had no answer. Days passed, and the strange union became the talk of the galaxy. Across the stars, whispers spread. The proud princess of the Valari had been forced to marry a human. Some species laughed at the scandal. Others pitied her, and many watched closely, waiting to see if this unusual match would collapse. Serenia refused to travel with Daniel at first. She ate alone, spoke only when required, and looked past him as if he were air. To her, he was a reminder of chains, yet Daniel never forced her company. He carried out his duties, spoke politely when necessary, and otherwise gave her silence. It was not the silence of indifference, but of patience. And that confused her. One night, as their diplomatic ship sailed through the stars, Serenia stood by the wide viewing window. The endless sea of galaxies stretched before her, and for the first time in weeks, she let her shoulders fall. Alone, she whispered. They think they have won. Behind her, a quiet voice answered. Maybe they haven't. She turned. Daniel stood a few steps away, his eyes fixed on the same stars. They wanted to humiliate you, he said, and maybe me too. But you don't have to let them. You're still you, princess. No council can take that away. Serenia studied him carefully. He was not mocking her, not pitying her. He spoke with plain honesty, the kind of honesty she had almost forgotten existed. For the first time since the punishment began, she felt a strange spark of curiosity. Who was this human, really? By the end of the first week, Serenia remained distant, but she no longer saw him only as a chain. Somewhere deep inside, a small question had begun to grow. Perhaps this punishment was not as simple as the council believed. Perhaps there was more to humans than weakness. And perhaps this man, this Daniel Reeve, was more than the pawn she thought he was. The ship that carried Princess Serenia and Captain Daniel Reeve drifted silently through the stars. Its long silver frame glowed under distant suns, a vessel made for diplomacy and peace talks. But inside, peace was nowhere to be found. Serenia kept herself apart. She walked the grand halls in silence, her chin lifted, ignoring Daniel as if he were a shadow. To her, he was nothing more than the punishment forced upon her, a reminder of her shame. She spoke to him only when required, and when she did, her words were sharp as blades. You do not belong here, she said one morning as he passed her in the dining hall. Her voice was calm but filled with disdain. This place is for leaders, not for creatures still climbing from caves. Daniel stopped, holding a tray of food. He did not raise his voice, nor did he bow to her insult. Instead, he answered softly, Maybe so, but I'm here anyway. And until someone sends me back, I'll do my best to carry myself with honor. His words were simple, but they struck something inside her. She had expected him to flare in anger, to defend himself with pride. Instead, he remained calm. She turned away, but the echo of his words stayed with her longer than she wished. Days passed, each one marked by the same quiet distance. Serenia spent her hours in the observation chambers, gazing at the stars, longing to be free of her chains. Daniel spent his time with the crew, learning the routines of the Valari ship, though he was treated with suspicion. The Valari officers looked at him as if he were a child, too clumsy to walk their shining halls. But Daniel never rose to their taunts. He observed, he listened, and he learned. Even in silence, his presence grew. Serenia noticed it, though she refused to admit it. She saw the way some of the younger guards began to respect him, how his steady nature calmed those around him. It unsettled her. One evening, while she sat near the great viewing window, she let out a quiet sigh. Strange, she murmured to herself. For a man meant to humiliate me, he does not act the fool. She did not realize Daniel had entered the chamber until he answered. Maybe I should act the fool. It might make things easier. Her eyes snapped toward him, her pride flashing. Do not mistake patience for acceptance, human. I will never call this union real. Daniel looked at her, his face unreadable. That's fine. I never asked you to. He turned and left before she could reply, and for reasons she could not explain, she felt more unsettled than before. The clash between them was not only in words. It was in every look, every step, every breath they shared. She represented pride, power, and an empire that ruled the stars. He represented humility, endurance, and a people still finding their place in the galaxy. They were opposites in every way, but fate, uncaring of their wishes, was about to test them both. It happened 3 nights later. The ship was moving through a quiet sector, its engines humming low. Most of the crew had retired, leaving only a skeleton watch at their stations. Serenia had just returned to her chamber when the alarm blared. Warning: hostile ships detected. Walls pulsed red with emergency lights. The ship shuddered as energy blasts struck its shields. The sound of weapons fire echoed through the corridors. Serenia rushed to the nearest command console, her eyes narrowing. Pirates, she whispered. The Valari Dominion had many enemies, and the days after the pirate attack were quiet. But the air between Princess Serenia and Captain Daniel Reeve had shifted. Neither spoke of the battle openly, but a subtle tension lingered, one that neither wanted to name. Serenia spent more time in the observation chambers, staring out into the endless expanse of stars. She had grown up surrounded by the might of the Valari Empire. She had been taught that power was shown through wealth, armies, and conquest. But Daniel had shown her something different: courage, loyalty, and quick thinking. Those were strengths the Council never respected, yet here they were, undeniable. Daniel, meanwhile, returned to his duties as if nothing had happened. He reviewed navigation charts, held briefings with the ship's officers, and trained the crew in tactics drawn from his human experiences. His calm, steady presence had a way of reassuring the nervous Valari officers. Slowly, even the younger soldiers who had mocked him began to nod respectfully at his commands. Serenia watched all of it from a distance. At first she told herself it did not matter. A human could survive a fight, yes, but that was only instinct. It did not compare to the disciplined strategy of the Valari. Still, she could not shake the curiosity that had taken root inside her. One afternoon, she found herself walking toward the training decks where Daniel had gathered the crew. She leaned against the observation window, watching him demonstrate basic combat drills. His movements were simple, almost crude by Valari standards, but precise and effective. Every step was calculated, every strike hit its mark. You see, said Lieutenant Taryn, noticing her. He may be human, but he teaches well. The crew listens. Serenia frowned. I see a human acting like a machine. Taryn shook his head. No, Princess. Machines do not think, do not adapt. He does both. Humans, they survive because they learn quickly, even from chaos. Serenia did not answer immediately. Her eyes followed Daniel as he corrected a young soldier's stance. Something about the way he handled mistakes, encouraging rather than punishing, reminded her of her own tutors, but better. Stern, yes, but patient. When the session ended, Daniel approached the observation deck. His uniform was lightly scratched, his hair a little messy, but his eyes were steady. Princess, he said, are you observing or judging? She raised her chin, hiding her hesitation. Perhaps both. He nodded. Fair enough. But humans are often underestimated because we do not shine with ornaments. We do not move with grace like Valari nobles, but we survive. We endure. That is our strength. Serenia stared at him, trying to understand the weight behind his words. Survival, endurance, adaptation. These were not the measures of her people, and yet she could see them in action. That night, the ship passed near a cluster of asteroid fields. Daniel called Serenia to the bridge. I want you to see something, he said. From the panoramic windows, she could see the jagged rocks spinning silently in the void. "What am I looking at?" she asked, skeptical. "The fields are dense," Daniel explained. "Many would avoid this area, fearing collision or ambush, but it can be navigated if you understand the danger, respect it, and act decisively." He guided the ship through narrow passages, maneuvering with skill that amazed even the Volari officers. The ship's shields glowed under occasional impacts, but Daniel adjusted instantly, keeping everyone safe. Serenya's hands gripped the railing. She had expected panic, hesitation, or arrogance, any flaw to prove her point, but there was none. Daniel's mind worked like a finely tuned instrument, calm even when chaos surrounded him. When they cleared the asteroid cluster, she finally spoke. "You do not fear?" Daniel smiled faintly. "Fear is natural. What matters is what you do with it. You cannot let fear control you." For a long time, Serenya was silent. The words sank deep into her mind. She realized that humans did not rely on titles, rank, or privilege to survive. They relied on skill, courage, and quick thinking, things her own people often overlooked. In the following days, they traveled to a planet considered remote by the Volari, a human colony world. It was small, unpolished, and lacking the grandeur of Volari cities. But it was alive. Children played in dusty streets. Workers moved with purpose, constructing homes and repairing machines. People laughed and argued, celebrated and mourned. Life thrived in spite of hardships. Serenya followed Daniel through the bustling streets. Everywhere she looked, humans worked together, improvising when things broke, helping strangers without thought of reward. A small group lifted a fallen cart. A woman guided a lost child to safety. "Do you see?" Daniel asked quietly. "This is their strength. They survive, not because they dominate, but because they care, adapt, and endure." Serenya watched, slowly understanding. These humans, primitive, uncivilized by Volari standards, were stronger in ways her empire had never taught. She could not ignore it. Later, they visited a training facility where young human recruits practiced drills. Daniel introduced her to the instructors and explained their techniques. Serenya observed closely as young humans ran obstacle courses, learned weapons handling, and participated in simulations. Their methods were different from Volari training, rougher, more improvisational, but they worked. "What is this?" she asked one instructor. "They do not follow formal ranks. They do not bow constantly, yet they fight as one." The instructor smiled. "They fight as humans, Princess. They rely on each other, trust each other, and adapt quickly. Discipline is in the mind, not in obedience." Serenya's eyes lingered on the recruits as they corrected each other, cheered, and pushed forward. For the first time, she wondered if her own people's arrogance was a weakness. That night, Serenya confronted Daniel privately in his quarters. The room was small, filled with maps and star charts. The human stood calmly as she approached. "Why are you like this?" she asked. "Why do you endure insult, danger, and hardship without complaint?" Daniel leaned against the table, considering. His words, "Because complaining changes nothing. Survival requires action, not pride. I do what I can, and I trust others to do the same." Serenya's eyes narrowed. "And yet, you saved me from death without hesitation. You do not fear for your life, or for me. How is that possible?" He shrugged. "Perhaps I fear more than you think, but fear cannot stop me, and some lives are worth more than pride." She did not answer immediately. His words settled in her mind like seeds planted in fertile soil. She could not dismiss him as weak, over. The next weeks, their journey continued, and Serenya began to notice more signs of human strength. Daniel's calm decision-making, his patience, his ability to inspire others, these were qualities her people often lacked. She saw it in the way he managed crew disputes, resolved emergencies, and handled negotiations. And she felt it in the quiet moments, when he did not lecture or dominate, but simply existed as a steady presence beside her. Her pride resisted the realization. She would not admit it to herself. Yet quietly, secretly, she began to respect him. Even more, she began to wonder if she had misjudged humans entirely. One day, the ship encountered a distress signal. A small mining vessel had been attacked by space raiders and was drifting near, a dangerous nebula. Volari officers were hesitant to respond. It was risky, and the Empire had little concern for human lives outside their borders. Daniel, however, insisted, "We cannot leave them. It is the right thing to do." Serenia watched as he coordinated the rescue, calculating trajectories, timing maneuvers, and managing the crew with precision. Under his leadership, the miners were saved and the raiders deterred. For the first time, Serenia realized the depth of human courage. Daniel risked not just himself, but the mission for others, strangers he had never met. She felt something shift inside her, a mixture of awe and something else. She did not yet understand it, but she knew she was no longer the same. As the stars passed by outside the ship, Serenia sat silently in the observation deck, thinking of Daniel. She remembered the pirate attack, the asteroid cluster, the human colony, and now the mining rescue. He was different, stronger than she had ever imagined, brave, thoughtful, resilient, and he had done it all without the arrogance of her people. For the first time, she wondered if her punishment might not be punishment after all. Perhaps the council had made a mistake, believing a human could break her spirit. Perhaps this human, this Daniel Reeve, could teach her more than the proudest Volari noble ever could. And perhaps she might even learn to trust him. The ship's corridors felt colder after the rescue mission. The Volari officers still whispered about Daniel Reeve, the human who had dared to lead them through danger. Some respected him, others despised him, but none could ignore him. Princess Serenia carried the weight of confusion. She had grown up surrounded by the belief that her people were supreme, flawless rulers of the stars. Yet again and again, this man, this supposed punishment, showed qualities her empire lacked. She often found herself thinking of his words, his calm eyes, and the way he acted without pride. It unsettled her, but she had little time to sort her thoughts. The Empire's enemies were not done with them. 3 days after the miners were saved, Serenia was summoned to a private meeting with her father, Emperor Kalen. The communication crystal lit up in her chamber and his stern face appeared. "My daughter," the Emperor said, his voice heavy. "You must be careful. There are whispers of betrayal within the council. Not all wished you married to." The starship Valara's crown glided toward the heart of the Dominion. Its battered hull still bore scars from the assassin's attack, but its engines carried it steadily into the system where the Great Council awaited. Princess Serenia had not slept well in many nights. Her dreams were restless, filled with shadows of betrayal and flashes of firelight, where Daniel's steady voice pulled her back to life. The council had summoned her. She knew why. They wanted answers about her survival, about her marriage, about the human who walked beside her. The council chamber on Valaris Prime was as grand as it was suffocating. Tall spires of silver crystal lined the hall, glowing faintly with ancient energy. Rows of counselors sat in a half-circle, their robes shimmering with the colors of rank and power. At the center of the chamber stood a raised platform. That was where Serenia was ordered to stand, like a jewel displayed before harsh eyes. Daniel was not permitted to stand with her, but he remained near the entrance, surrounded by guards who eyed him with open disdain. The High Chancellor's voice thundered across the chamber. "Princess Serenia of Valaris, you were sent into punishment bound to a human as lesson and symbol, yet you return not broken but defiant. You must answer. Why is this human still alive? Why have you allowed him to walk beside you as if he were an equal?" Serenia lifted her chin, but her heart pounded. Every eye was on her. She could feel their judgment pressing down, heavy as stone. "I was forced into this union," she said, "but in the fire of trial, truth has been revealed." Whispers rippled through the chamber. The Chancellor leaned forward. What truth could a human possibly offer the Dominion? Serenia's gaze moved toward Daniel, He stood silently, his posture calm though the guards watched him like a predator in a cage. She breathed deeply and spoke, her voice firm, that humans are not what we believed. That strength is not only in bloodlines or titles. That honor is not born in palaces, but in actions. This man has saved me more times than the Dominion ever has. He has stood by me when others sought my death. If you call that weakness, then perhaps it is the council who is blind, not me. Gasps filled the hall. Some counselors exchanged angry glances. Others looked unsettled, as though cracks had appeared in the walls of their certainty. The chancellor's voice grew sharp. You dare defy us? You speak in favor of a creature lower than Valari servants? This is treason against your own blood. Serenya's heart thundered, but she did not waver. She remembered Daniel's words. Chains can break. I speak the truth, she said. And if truth is treason, then perhaps treason is what the Dominion needs. The chamber erupted. Some counselors shouted for her to be silenced. Others demanded Daniel's execution. The guards tightened their grip on their weapons. But before chaos consumed the hall, a deep voice boomed across the chamber. Enough! It was Emperor Kalen. Serenya's father had arrived without warning, his presence commanding silence. He stepped into the chamber, his silver cloak trailing behind him, his eyes sharp and unreadable. My daughter speaks boldly, he said, his gaze sweeping the council. But have you forgotten? It was not the Dominion's strength that protected her from assassins. It was this human. The council fell silent, unwilling to openly contradict their emperor. Kalen turned to Serenya, his face softened but only slightly. You have defied the council, child. But you have also shown courage. Courage our people claim to admire. His words did not free her from danger, but they bought her a fragile shield. The council would not strike against her openly, not yet. After the session, Serenya returned to her private chambers. Daniel was finally allowed to join her. She collapsed onto a chair, her body trembling with the weight of what she had said. I thought they would kill me, she whispered. Daniel knelt beside her, his voice calm. They wanted fear. Instead, you gave them truth. That frightens them, more than anything. Serenya looked into his eyes. I could not have spoken without you. Every word I said. It was your strength that carried me. He shook his head. No, it was yours. You chose to speak. Her chest tightened. She wanted to believe him. Perhaps she already did. The next days were filled with tension. Serenya was watched constantly. Some nobles sent her veiled threats, others offered false smiles. The air of Valorous Prime was heavy with plots. Yet whispers also spread among the people. Stories of the princess who had stood against the council, who had defended a human, began to circulate in markets and taverns. Some called her reckless. Others called her brave. For the first time, Serenya felt the people's eyes on her not as a jewel, but as a figure of change. One evening, as she and Daniel walked through the palace gardens, a small child ran to her, clutching a flower. The guards moved to stop the child, but Serenya raised her hand. The girl offered the flower shyly. For you, princess. My father says you are not afraid to speak. Serenya knelt and accepted the flower, her throat tight. She glanced at Daniel, who gave her a faint nod. In that moment, she understood. Her words in the council had not been only defiance. They had been a seed. But danger still grew. That same night, a secret message was smuggled into her chamber. It bore the seal of a hidden faction within the Dominion. The message read, If you wish to survive, leave the human. Cast him aside, and your life will be spared. Keep him, and both of you will die. Serenya read it twice, her hands trembling. She knew the council's threats were not empty. Yet when she looked at Daniel, she also knew she could not betray him. Her punishment had become her choice. The true turning point came days later, during a public assembly in the plaza of Valorous Prime. Thousands of citizens gathered, their eyes fixed on the platform where Serenya and Daniel were brought forward. The chancellor stood tall, declaring, This union is a stain upon our empire. Today the princess will renounce her human and order shall be restored, the crowd murmured. Many expected Serenia to obey. Few believed she would stand against the council again. The chancellor turned to her. Princess Serenia, do you renounce this human, or do you fall with him? Silence fell. All eyes burned into her. Her pulse raced, her throat dry. But she thought of the child with the flower, of Daniel's steady gaze, of the freedom she had tasted. She stepped forward, her voice clear and unwavering. I do not renounce him. I claim him. A roar spread through the plaza. Some shouted in outrage, others in awe. Daniel froze, shocked by her words. Serenia continued, her voice rising. You call him punishment, but I call him proof. Proof that loyalty, courage, and honor are not bound by blood or empire. If you demand I choose, then I choose him. The plaza erupted. Citizens cheered. Counselors shouted. Guards tightened their lines. Daniel stepped closer to her, his voice low. Do you realize what you've just done? Her eyes met his, fierce and certain. Yes. For the first time in my life, I chose for myself. The declaration sent shockwaves across the Dominion. Some called for Serenia's imprisonment. Others began to question the council's power. Among the people, her defiance spread like wildfire. The council had tried to punish her. Instead, they had created a spark that could not be contained. And as Serenia stood beside Daniel on the platform, with the stars above and the crowd below, she felt something she had never truly felt before. Freedom. The council was furious. Princess Serenia's public declaration had shattered centuries of tradition. They could not allow a human to walk openly beside the princess, nor could they tolerate her defiance. Plans for her capture were drawn in secret chambers, weapons readied and loyal soldiers ordered to act swiftly, but they had underestimated her. Serenia and Daniel had spent the following days preparing quietly. Using the lessons they had learned together, they trained the ship's crew, reinforced defenses, and planned for a confrontation. Serenia herself had grown stronger, both in spirit and skill. She no longer relied only on her title or beauty. She had discovered courage within herself. The council sent their first strike under cover of night. Elite guards boarded the ship, moving with silent precision. But Serenia and Daniel were ready. The alarms sounded before the intruders reached the princess's quarters. Daniel fired first, taking a position behind a reinforced console. Serenia moved beside him, her hand steady on her weapon. Together, they coordinated with the crew, defending every corridor with strategy and precision. Daniel shouted orders, not like a commander demanding obedience, but like a man who trusted his allies' instincts. Serenia followed his lead, issuing commands with her voice as firm and clear as his. Guards who had doubted the human before now moved with respect, inspired by the unusual partnership of princess and outsider. The battle raged through the ship. Sparks flew from damaged panels and the sound of weapon fire echoed through every hallway. For the first time, Serenia felt the thrill of action that was her own choice. She was no longer a pawn. She was a warrior, fighting alongside the one she had chosen. At the heart of the ship, the council's elite faced them directly. These soldiers were trained, fast, and merciless. Yet even they faltered against the combination of human adaptability and Valari strategy. Daniel anticipated every move, redirecting attacks and covering Serenia. She struck with precision, using every skill she had gained since the journey began. One of the elite managed to strike at Daniel, a weapon glowing with deadly energy. Serenia reacted instantly, pushing him out of the way. The blade struck her shoulder, but she held her ground,